Hello and welcome to the Kopala TV main news. We get straight into our headlines for today. Zambian DNA welcomes the formation of political alliances and pacts. PEP calls on government to put in place modalities which will allow all interested Zambians to mourn Grey Zulu. In international news, thousands on the street of Belarus demand resignation of President Lukashenko. Join us in a bit for the news in detail. To present the Kopala TV main news, my name is Wawila Musongole. The Zambian DNA says the formation of political alliances and pacts are most welcome as they demonstrate how the democratic space in Zambia is expanding under the able leadership of President Edgar Lungu. Zambian DNA spokesperson Spuki Mlemwa said, however, the formation of such political alliances or pacts in Zambia are mostly motivated by selfish interests and not the passion to help improve the Zambian people's welfare, as evidenced by their lack of human face agenda. Mr. Mlemwa said the best alliances and pacts should be with the Zambian people, as is the case with the current government of President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, who is rolling out an all-inclusive development agenda tailored not to leave anyone behind.
The formation of political alliances or political pacts in Zambia is most welcome, as they demonstrate how the democratic space is expanding in Zambia under the able leadership of President Edgar Chagwa Lungu. However, the formation of such political alliances or pacts in Zambia are mostly motivated by selfish interests and not the passion to help improve the Zambian people's welfare, as evidenced by their lack of human face agenda. Zambians in their collective intelligence fully know that such alliances or pacts are formed only to help those who have formed them to share key positions in government if ever given a chance to form government, and not to improve the welfare of the Zambian people. In our view, the best political alliance or pacts should be with the people, as is the case with the current government, which is rolling out all-inclusive development agenda tailored not to leave anyone behind.
Patriots for Economic Progress, PEP, has said that it has learnt with absolute shock and regret of the untimely passing of one of the great political luminaries of yesteryear, His Honour Mr. Grey Zulu. PEP President Sean Tembo has called upon government to put in place modalities which will allow all interested Zambians to mourn Mr. Grey Zulu within the limits of the COVID-19 guidelines. Mr. Tembo says Mr. Grey Zulu has left an indelible mark on the history of this country, a mark that is peppered with integrity, dignity, courage, professionalism, and unparalleled patriotism.
As Patriots for Economic Progress, we have noted with a lot of shock the untimely passing of Mr. Grey Zulu, who is not only a political luminary of yesteryear, but also a great statesman to this country. Indeed, we strongly believe that Mr. Grey Zulu's legacy to this country is one that is peppered with integrity, dignity, patriotism, courage, and everything good that can be said about any person. And so as we mourn Mr. Grey Zulu, we wish to advise government to ensure that they put in place modalities that will ensure that every Zambian that wants to mourn Mr. Grey Zulu is able to do so. Of course, within the guidelines of COVID-19. The mourning of Mr. Grey Zulu should not be an exclusive preserve of government officials only, in the manner that they made the mourning of the former Director General of the Zambia Security Intelligence Services, whereby only people with invitation cards were allowed to mourn him. Indeed, we believe that the mourning of any statesman should be an opportunity to actually unite this country and not be used to advance the narrow partisan political interests of the ruling Patriotic Front.
Moving on, Governance, Elections Advocacy Research Services GEARS Initiative Zambia says it continues to be concerned at the non-censure of public servants and/or officers prostituting with the ruling party without relinquishing their positions. Gears Initiative Executive Director McDonald Chipenzi says it is clear that as a result, many district commissioners and other public officers have been encouraged to get involved in active partisan politics in favor of the ruling party despite being civil servants. Mr. Chipenzi said the reported application of Mr. Andrew Mpandamwike of ZNBC Kitwe Studios, who is serving as a senior cameraman, and a serving district commissioner, Kelly Kashiwa, are vivid examples of how the civil public service has been patronized by and diluted with partisan politics and politicians.
We invite the DC of Kasama, Mr. Kelly Kashiwa, and also the senior cameraman for ZNBC Kitwe Studios, Mr. Andrew Pandamwike, to read Article 186 of our Constitution, so that they appreciate that when they seek election, they have to resign as civil servants or public servants, public officers. So it is not in the right spirit of the Constitution for them to continue holding on as public servants or public officers when the law does not allow any public officer who seek election to continue serving as such. And indeed, the continued stay of the two in their public office.
In case you have just tuned in, you are watching the Kopala TV main news. Join us in a bit after our commercial break.
Kopala TV, Kopala ya buena mumwesu Kopala.
My number ishusho limentindeaza yama OG urushani Kopala TV
yama OG imuntu wandi Yesu fwebene by fwebene aidede kalasti yako Kopala futi yaba Kopala
manje kuikatashani yoina naena ya kuntambo oroni jiviji
wala iwe ile sango patop stad koda channel 98 paku ninshi yatubira puta mensa ninshi yalila ni efidimbwe kule izimoli la femunjazi
so yuri ndati Kopala TV tayabanga ya boiling channel wako batu wachilatamba fe wino kwangwa filamba fyambo kupona uruwa mfotoro bantu ifuma chane wefingi fyamo pura fi
alula iwe Kopala TV ni Kopala futhi eile kuchalo no ushali mokuba molasti elo ile sansa Kopala yonse my number ukwambila fepa my number pandula lwansha kito paketi ke mufurila mufuken chingola pa chingo begi na chidila bombe ni Kopala TV eiliko
muntu wanja pakushongora fika top star we tatande tambela pofi Kopala TV pachani 98 pakude konkana ne charo bamba to bamba ni pate after pate wo pate after pate wo Kopala TV OG yeah. Kopala TV, available on Topstar Channel 98. Kopala TV, entertainment just for you.
Looking for an opportunity to grow your business? Well, Kopala TV has good news for all small-scale businesses. You can now advertise on Kopala TV's Makwebo. Bonseba na mayo na bashtata. Iseni mulangishe amakwebo yenu pamutengo uachepa nga 100 kwacha. Yes, you heard right. For as low as 100 kwacha, your business will get its peak. Whatever the business, we will advertise. All you need to do is send a text of what your business offers, indicating the name, location, and contact details to the number below. Payment for the advertising spot can be made through MTN mobile money on the number down below. Makwebo, make your business known.
One Zambia, one nation.
Zambia chalo chesu. Stop political violence.
I am Zambian. I am against political violence.
I am Zambian, and I say disarm all cadres now.
It's not one Zambia if we kill each other. Stop the violence.
It's not good killing one another as Zambians. Stop the violence.
Let's keep the peace in our streets. Let's work to stay one Zambia.
It's not one Zambia if we kill each other. Stop the violence.
Ndimwina Zambia, lekeni ukulwa pamulandu wa politics.
Welcome back. The United Party for National Development, UPND, has said the party is asking PF to be sincere and serious in finding a lasting solution to the high unemployment and poverty levels than giving people pocket money. UPND Chairman for Mines and Freedom Fighter Percy Chanda says if PF is serious about helping the youth, they should support those already in the manufacturing sector with the right equipment and tools. For example, government can procure equipment and tools for those making door and window frames and many others for them to improve productivity and quality of their products, as we need to properly equip such small-scale industries.
Handouts in whatever form cannot take people out of poverty. PF is giving fish to people instead of teaching them how to fish. PF should consider equipping the youths with the survival skills that can sustain them for the rest of their lives. PF should revamp the dead industrial base to support the mining industry in order to create jobs. Giving people pocket money is not sustainable. The hostile economic environment under PF is such that the majority of those receiving handouts will end up extremely poor. With this kind of approach, the dreams of Zambia reaching a middle-income country are very slim. PF is using handouts as a campaign tool.
And Rainbow Party has said it is not in support of government's stance of putting a ban on the export of maize and mealie meal year in and year out to neighboring countries and markets, when the country can take advantage of this very ready market and maximize foreign exchange revenue and stabilize the country's exchange rate as well as boost the economy. Rainbow Party Copperbelt Provincial Chairperson Fudays Nsensema says the party wants to take this opportunity to advise the government to maximize the benefits and potential in the agricultural sector that the country has. Mr. Nsensema further said there has been a lot of instability in terms of production in the mining sector, and the country cannot afford to heavily depend on the mines anymore because their future is very weak.
As Rainbow Party, we are not in support of the government's stance of putting a ban on export of maize and mealie meal year in, year out to our neighboring countries and also our neighboring markets, when we can take advantage of this ready-made market and maximize foreign exchange revenue and stabilize our exchange rate and in turn boost our economy. As Rainbow Party, we want to take this opportunity to advise the government to maximize the benefit and potential in the agriculture sector the country has. There has been a lot of instability in terms of production in the mining sector, and the country cannot afford to heavily depend on the mines anymore because their future is very bleak. It is for this reason that we are urging the government to invest more in the agriculture sector by ensuring that the country has available agriculture imports and equipment at affordable prices to make citizens engage in farming business, unlike the current situation where the price of fertilizers, the price of seeds and other equipment are too expensive for an ordinary farmer to afford.
Lastly, in local stories, opposition All People's Congress Party, APC, has said that when it comes to medical guidelines, there is no political exemption in terms of observing strict guidelines against COVID-19. APC President Nason Musoni said it is most unfortunate under the circumstances that it is those who are expected to provide leadership over the COVID-19 fight who are in fact defying common sense judgment on the containment of the pandemic.
When it comes to medical guidelines, there is no political exemption in terms of observing strict guidelines against COVID-19. And so we are perturbed by our friends, particularly those of our colleagues who bear the highest responsibility, that they continue to defy these medical guidelines with such impunity that takes no account of the health of our young people. And I think that as long as this willful political defiance continues with impunity, it means that it will be very difficult to contain the COVID-19 infections. No one should be exempt from observing these strict guidelines. So we think that what we are witnessing, what we are seeing, is tantamount to giving double standards. It's tantamount to having double standards, playing double standards. And this aren't going to work for the majority of our people. That on one hand we are enforcing strict observance of those guidelines and imposing penalties of 750,000 kwacha, 750 kwacha. And on the other hand, we are allowing some political functionaries to continue to hold functions.
You are still watching the Kopala TV main news. We break once more and we'll be back with international news.
Kopala TV, Kopala ya buena mumwesu Kopala.
My number. Ishusho limentindeaza yama oji urushani. Kopala TV.
Yama oji. Imuntu wandi Yesu. Fwebene by fwebene. Fwebene. Naidede kalasti. Iyako Kopala futi yaba Kopala.
Manje kuikatashani yoina. Naena ya kuntambo oro ni jiviji.
Wala iwe. Ile sangwa patop stadi koda. Channel 98 paku. Ninshi ya tuvela. Puta mensa ninshi ya lila ni efidimbwi. Kule izimoli la femunjazi.
So yuri landati Kopala TV tayawanga ya boiling channel wako watu wachila tamba fe wino. Kwangwa filamba fyambo kupona. Uruwa mfotoro. Pantu ifuma channel wefingi fyamo pura fi.
Alula iwe, Kopala TV ni Kopala futhi kuchalo. No ushali mokuba molasti. Elo ile sansa Kopala yonse my number. Ukwambila pepe my number pandula lwansha. Kito paketi ke mufurila mufuken. Chingola pa chingo begi na chidila iwe. Ni Kopala TV liko.
Muntu wanja pakushongora fika top star wetata nde tambela pofi Kopala TV pachani 98 pakude konkana ne charo bampa to bamba ni pate after pate wo pate after pate wo Kopala TV OG Kopala TV available on Topstar channel 98. Kopala TV, entertainment just for you.
Looking for an opportunity to grow your business? Well, Kopala TV has good news for all small-scale businesses. You can now advertise on Kopala TV's Makwebo. Bonseba na mayo na bashtata. Iseni mulangishe amakwebo yenu pamutengo uachepa nga 100 kwacha. Yes, you heard right. For as low as 100 kwacha, your business will get its peak. Whatever the business, we will advertise. All you need to do is send a text of what your business offers, indicating the name, location, and contact details to the number below. Payment for the advertising spot can be made through MTN mobile money on the number down below. Makwebo, make your business known.
One Zambia, one nation.
Zambia chalo chesu. Stop political violence.
I am Zambian. I am against political violence.
I am Zambian, and I say disarm all cadres now.
It's not one Zambia if we kill each other. Stop the violence.
It's not good killing one another as Zambians. Stop the violence.
Let's keep the peace in our streets. Let's work to stay one Zambia.
It's not one Zambia if we kill each other. Stop the violence.
Ndi mwina Zambia, lekeni ukulwa pamulandu wa politics.
Welcome back once again. In foreign news, the largest anti-government protests since last week's disputed elections have been taking place in Belarus. It's estimated that 100,000 people have taken to the streets demanding that President Alexander Lukashenko steps down. President Lukashenko, who's been in power for 26 years, has claimed the country is under threat from foreign forces and is refusing to step down. His opponents accuse him of rigging the presidential election and unleashing a violent crackdown against protesters and political opponents. We monitored the BBC for this story.
Mr. Lukashenko is accused of rigging the vote and unleashing a violent crackdown against demonstrators. It's thought as many as 100,000 people took to the streets in the center of the capital Minsk, from where Jonah Fisher has sent us this report.
A week after the disputed election, Belarus is voting with its feet. The centre of the capital, Minsk, taken over by hundreds of thousands of people. United in their demand that Alexander Lukashenko, the only president this country has ever known, leave office.
Well, I really hope that when he sees all these people, he will step down.
You really think that's likely? He's been here a long time.
Maybe it's... I hope so.
Do you think that this sort of demonstration is going to convince the president to go?
Yes, we believe. That's why we're all here, all Minsk, all our country.
Belarus has never seen scenes like this before. A couple of weeks ago, demonstrations were extremely rare and they were usually brutally snuffed out by the government. Now there were people marching as far as the eye can see through the center of the capital, Minsk. There's a real sense of change in the air.
But for now, President Lukashenko clings on to power. This was his rally today in Minsk. Just a few thousand showed up, an embarrassing turnout for a man who claims to have won 80% of the vote. In a defiant speech, he rejected calls for new elections, telling his supporters that NATO tanks were near the border. Leave, leave, they chant, but exactly how that happens is far from clear.
Do you think that the president is going to go peacefully?
I'm not sure about it, but we will not go away. Today, tomorrow, next week, we will stay here on the streets. Yeah, and I would like to say that I was born in 1998, and I spent all my life with President Lukashenko, and I don't want it anymore.
This was a day when Belarusians found their voice. Lukashenko, lock him up, they're saying here. Europe's longest-serving leader may have passed the point of no return.
Leaders from Southern Africa are holding a virtual summit on Monday to discuss regional issues. A recent uptick in violence in Mozambique is expected to be high on the agenda. There are concerns that attacks by armed groups could spill over into neighboring countries. We monitored Al Jazeera for this report.
For 3 years, people living in parts of northern Mozambique have lived with violence, death and destruction. Attacks in Cabo Delgado province have rapidly gathered pace this year, with fighters seizing towns for brief periods and increasingly hitting military or other important targets. The government says local fighters affiliated to ISIL are responsible. Leaders from Southern Africa are meeting on Monday to decide what the region can and should do to help Mozambique's army.
There has been a lot of issues on the capabilities of the Mozambican military, from the strength and from the military intelligence side of things. Right? And this is historical, right? The Mozambican military has not really been able to thwart any insurgents from the Renamo Civil War alone.
Mozambique's President, Filipe Nyusi, visited the area and promised to do more to help people affected by the violence. There is speculation some Southern African leaders could send in troops to help Mozambique's army. It's happened before in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Lesotho and Mozambique, back when fighters from the group Renamo were raiding towns and villages in Gorongosa.
It doesn't have that strong a military, and in any event it is coming from a process and period in which it was already undergoing military civil war. And again, there was international assistance to either come to a peace agreement with the former Renamo military movement, as well as to try and integrate the armies within Mozambique. So it's a very fragile sort of military framework that Mozambique has at the moment.
Southern African leaders are under pressure to come up with a plan to help. In May, some regional leaders met here in Harare to decide what to do about the unrest in Mozambique. But after hours of talks, the meeting ended without any concrete agreement. Many people have died, thousands have been displaced by the violence, which seems to be getting worse. Northern Mozambique is rich in natural gas. Some projects are believed to be worth more than $60 billion. Analysts say that could be one reason fueling the violence. There are concerns attacks by armed groups could spill over into neighboring countries. That's already been seen in other parts of the continent, such as the Western Sahel region and the Horn of Africa. Haru Mutasa, Al Jazeera, Harare.
Finally, in international news, the closure of England's last commercial coal mine has marked the end of an era. The Bradley mine in County Durham has operated for almost 200 years, but now, after plans to expand the site failed, an open-cast pit that produces 150,000 tons of coal a year will close. We monitored Sky News for this story.
The end of an era. From today, commercial coal mining in England is effectively over. The Bradley mine in County Durham has operated for almost 200 years, but now the open cast pit that produces 150,000 tonnes of coal a year will close.
I'm devastated. I'm absolutely devastated that it's coming to a close. This will be the last coal mine that I'll probably ever work on, and that will be it.
So what now?
Haven't got a clue.
My partner's family are in it. They've been in it for 30 years. Obviously coming to it late. My father, like I say, worked for British Steel. That industry's gone. It's awful. I think that there's British lads there that can do the job. We've got all the machinery, we've got all the training, probably more qualified than a lot of the rest of the world, but we've had it all taken away from us.
There are still a handful of small mines like this operating in Scotland and Wales, but their days too are numbered. The coal industry in England has been in decline for years. The miners' strikes and the pitched battles over pit closures in the 1980s couldn't save it, and it's faced a slow and painful death ever since. The last deep mine at Kellingley in North Yorkshire closed 5 years ago. Since then, the only home-produced coal has come from open-cast mines like Bradley. There is still coal here in Consett, but owners Banks Group says it's only commercially viable if they can extend their operation. Environmental campaigners fought hard against those plans.
That item ends the Kopala TV main news for today, but before we go, a recap of our headlining stories. Zambian DNA welcomes the formation of political alliances and pacts. PEP calls on government to put in place modalities which will allow all interested Zambians to mourn Grey Zulu. In international news, thousands on the streets of Belarus demand resignation of President Lukashenko. Thank you for watching the Kopala TV main news. My name is Wabula Musongole and pleasant viewing.